Ben and I are heading on a road trip to celebrate the 2000s, driving cars from the 2000s, music from the 2000s, and of course, talking Top Gear from the 2000s. Travelling from where Ben lived in that decade to where I lived.
Ben, act normal.
We'll stop off at relevant points along the way, as well as ending up at one of the most haunting locations in Top Gear history.
And did you have a lot of concerns?
I found out the same car, someone had died in it the year before.
First up, I arrived at Ben's old digs in my car of choice.
Ah,
Benjamin,
right, Bond.
get in. So you lived here
Yes.
in the 2000s, Tynedale Road.
I pretty much lived everywhere in the 2000s.
Okay,
Just
you got about a bit.
I did. I'd just come back from America, so I was living in Indianapolis then, and then was racing Formula 3, and then came back, lived in Oxford for a bit.
So how old were you in the year 2000?
25.
25. Okay, so bang in the middle, 2005, you were 30.
Yep.
So that's the age I am now,
Yeah.
which I think is quite cool.
Maybe there's a lot in common.
Maybe. I do feel like we are quite similar.
It's a formative period. You know a bit more about who you are,
Yes.
and you start to get a sense of where you want to go.
But you also have to contend with adult stuff. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm
I
not
put
a
that
student.
off for as long as possible.
Okay, so year 2000, 25-year-old Ben Collins. What are you doing at the age of 25?
Well, racing Formula 3. So Takuma Sato was my teammate.
Cool.
And yeah, living here and training a lot. So getting sort of keeping the fitness levels going when not getting invited out to parties at universities.
Well, I think something our audience will definitely appreciate is us going over the cars of the 2000s, the best cars from that decade. And you were in a position where you were driving most of the greatest of that decade on track and on road trips and stuff.
Yeah, I
So what immediately springs to mind? 2000s, that decade, what cars are bang straight in there?
For me, this was the rebirth of hypercars. There'd been the 90s batch, but there weren't that many of them.
Yeah.
It seemed to be in the 2000s, a lot of the manufacturers were like, yeah, let's do a hypercar.
Well,
So-
it was kind of the first holy trinity, right? So Enzo, Carrera GT, SLR.
Yes, yeah,
Pick of the bunch out of those three?
Carrera GT.
Carrera GT.
Because I think for me, it's the most exciting, the wicked car ever made. That because of the V10.
So when we were planning this trip, I was like, cool, what car do I want from the 2000s? And actually, off the back of what you just said, I wanted an SLR. But you try and convince someone to give you an SLR to put about 1,000 miles on it.
Yeah, it's going to be a no.
It's not going to happen. So I had to go down the tree a bit. But I chose what I think is one of the top 5 prettiest cars ever made. Aston Martin Vanquish. It's a proper Bond car. It's
Yeah,
full
it's
on.
Die Another Day, isn't
Pierce
it?
Brosnan, yeah. Not the best film. But I found you really have to rev these to get them to sound anything like what you want them to. Like, I feel it needs an exhaust on it, because, like, I'm just trying to go, like, you know, it sounds okay, but that could be a V8. I'll hold it in second, and you tell me what your arse dyno's telling me.
Sure.
How good is your arse dyno?
It's good.
Yeah?
It's pretty good.
Mine is quite accurate. It's, like, really sensitive.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of action.
I'll give that 425.
Leaving Oxford, we plugged our next 2000s location into Google Maps. Silverstone.
Was there a bit of a hiatus in your racing?
Yeah.
Because Top Gear kind of took over, right? So
It did a bit, and plus I was getting into other stuff because you're looking for ways to get a good income. You need to like spread out, do as much as possible. So I started doing car commercials, working in movies. So 08, first James Bond movie, which was epic. So Quantum of Solace, so I was doing that.
was that your first movie? What was your first stunt
movie
driving gig?
So this is the thing. I actually broke my ribs racing in Romania for Ascari.
Yep.
Someone turfed me into the barrier in a qualifying session, and that put me out of the racing. So from there, I went to go and work on the first movie, which was National Treasure 2,
Yes.
doubling Nicolas Cage
Hell
in a
yeah.
Mercedes and sitting on the roof in the pod car.
So Ben, early 2000s, you are kicking ass around here.
Well, not enough ass, because I was trying to get to Formula One and didn't get there. So it was a kind of really trying to assess what I was doing, where I needed to go next. So from Formula 3 up to the Le Mans sports cars, that was the place. So then actually started doing a bit of butt kicking.
And it's so cool that downstairs there's a cabinet that's BRDC members that have competed at Le Mans, and your car is sitting there with BC written below.
Yeah, love
That is
it.
cool to see.
That era, racing at Le Mans for the first time, 2001, was super special. It's a massive place with such high speeds. So to graduate to the sort of top flight level and be racing against, Mark Blundell, a load of other F1 drivers that I knew, who only just come out of Formula One. So you watched them on TV and you knew them well. So seeing those helmets, running wheel to wheel with them, on a very flooded track, 'cause it was torrential conditions.
Yeah, I'm
It was a lot
right
of
in
fun.
saying you drove really well. Like, you were genuinely an outstanding driver in that Le Mans. Like,
Yeah, I
the
think so.
commentator would have been like, bloody hell, this
Yeah.
BC guy's all right.
Yeah.
Well, year 2000 for me, it was my first ever Grand Prix. I literally sat in that stand over there, probably about this high with my little ear defenders on. Year 2000, that was the year that Schumacher broke his leg.
Oh yeah.
He went straight on, broke his leg, and Coulthard went on to win it.
Yeah.
Back then, I was obsessed with Jaguar F1, which came from Stewart with those amazing British racing green cars. And I remember going for dinner in Oxford with my dad pre-race, and Eddie Irvine just like came in and had some chicken.
Nice.
I associate this place with those screaming 3-litre V10s. If you could hop back in time and experience a grid of 20 cars with all those engines, I mean, imagine you're kind of used to it at that time. You take it for granted. But now, like, what we'd give to have a full field of V10 F1 cars.
It's so true what you say. Yeah, well, you couldn't stand here without earplugs. And, or, your fingers in their ears. I mean, it's just titanic sounds.
So, cool first place to stop off on this trip. Iconic track. Next stop, you could say equally as iconic, very Top Gear based. Not quite a racetrack, a big long strip of tarmac.
Oh.
Bit further up north.
Okay. Oh, I know where we're going.
Yeah. To the Aston. We really need to have a full conversation of its own about Top Gear. I've started with the series that you came in at, so Series 3.
Yes.
And the first thing
Although I started doing things in Series 2.
as
So-
the black stick.
At home, I've actually got a black stick helmet.
Damn. Season 7, your Veyron trip from Turin, arguably the greatest Top Gear race against the plane. You've got some pretty serious behind the scenes stories from that because you drove it back, correct?
Yeah.
To get all the pickup shots. How many times do you think you broke 200 miles an hour in that car?
I don't know. I believe, though, that what we were doing was completely legal because we had the police force in each country working with us. But I think a number of times we may have, stretched its legs.
You've whispered to me before about what you think the potential amount of fines were that you got from that will have landed on a Volkswagen desk somewhere. What
Who
are
knows?
we talking?
Who
We're
knows?
talking like jail time speeds, right?
Well, hopefully more than will land on your desk on Monday morning after this trip.
Well, I heard it was comfortably a 5-figure sum
Really?
of some of them over 200 miles an hour.
Okay, I did not know that. I heard we got 56 tickets.
Right, so you do know that. Why are you hiding
I-
this? Right, here we go.
I don't know.
56 tickets.
But I don't know that that's true or not. And
Who told you that?
I just heard it. I can't remember.
do you mean you
This
just
is the-
heard it?
Everybody makes this stuff up.
56.
We didn't go that fast.
I don't believe you. Koenigsegg CCX.
Yes.
Potentially the most legendary lap of any of them.
Yeah.
So what happened when that car snapped?
Well, at that particular moment, I'd gone pretty much as fast as I thought I was going to go, but I was trying to eke out a bit more. They were a pretty new company. They designed that car. It was really out there design, and they'd been going for the land speed records. So it was built for that. It was
Yep.
not built for high-speed cornering. The tail got away more than I wanted, and when I corrected it, the power steering had a bit of an issue, which can be a thing, because you've got all the caster and all that weight go through the wheel, which power steering is negating for you. But when you get into counter steering, it really ups the load, and it overloaded the power steering. So in that moment, the steering went full solid,
Right.
and I couldn't unwind the lock, which is why I exited stage left,
Yes.
which does sound like racing excuse 3021, but is what happened. You know, from looking ahead, tarmac, tyre wall, where I was supposed to be going, it went left, grass, wall, barrier. It's the only barrier in the whole of that field. I couldn't, it was wet grass, and just went, put my head on the blocks. I thought, this is not good. It's a massive mistake on my part, and I'm could get canned. But they were really cool. And Jeremy was there as well. He could have wound me up a treat. They both just said, it's a pretty wild beast.
By the way, the whole point was that we kind of wore stuff of the 2000s. So
Well
if you
done.
look, I've got my Vans here.
Did you wear Vans in period though?
So I wore the checkerboard ones. Do you
Oh, yeah,
remember them?
they're
The
cool.
slip-on checkerboards?
It wasn't like chef shoes.
But they were almost like sort of boating shoes. I don't know why they were kind of in, but to me there was a triple battle. It was Vans versus Converse versus DC.
Yeah.
You still kick about in Converses.
Converse, the
They've
way
been
forward.
enduring the whole time.
Love them.
Yeah.
And the leather ones last a bit longer, but they all fall apart, don't they?
And then, yeah, I actually got this in Australia. My
Did you?
Powerpuff Girls t-shirt.
I still wear my Green Day t-shirts, American Idiot.
That's cool.
Yeah, the
That
fist
was-
with a grenade.
Yeah.
My Chemical Romance. You into You don't strike me as a My Chemical Romance. That was proper emo stuff, that was.
You would have missed out on the grunge era, but there is some, like say, the Foo Fighters picked some of that up to some extent.
Yes.
Old rock. White Stripes,
Yes.
Kooks, Kings
Yep.
of Leon.
Yep. Yeah, I was all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So music saved you from your TV upbringing by the sound of things.
Well, do you know what? I became obsessed with music videos. So there was times where just over a weekend I would just go on the TV and just watch Kerrang, MTV.
I used to watch
Q,
MTV.
Just literally music video after music video. I reckon if I went on Mastermind, I think like 2000s music videos
Yeah.
would be.
MTV used to be brilliant, and now it's unwatchable.
With the sun setting on our first day of the road trip, we swung on to one of the most infamous strips of tarmac in Top Gear history.
Richard Hammond, the popular TV presenter, seriously ill in hospital.
Ben Elvington Airfield, where Richard Hammond went off, probably somewhere up there, at over 300 miles an hour. Tell us from your perspective how that all went down.
So, well, I was involved in the build-up to that shoot, but only very last minute. So actually, I think it was the week before. I came up to look at the machine. I didn't even call it a vehicle, but it was a big, long thing. And not like a drag strip car, it was because it's a jet car, it's completely different. And they also don't tend to go to the same places you would see a dragster. So Santa Pod, with this contained in concrete barriers, and I'm not a drag racing expert, so it's difficult to know what you're looking at. But I went to do a cursory inspection of the thing that I was going to drive with Richard. So, you know, Richard was designated to do this drive, this 300 mile an hour plus. And yeah, went up the lane to go and meet the engineers, hoping to see a sort of McLaren setup, but it was really rustic environment. The car's being prepped in a container box, basically. But it was a completely alien beast to anything I'd ever come across. And it had, you know, complicated mechanisms to get the jet going with afterburner, and to slow down, if you press the brakes at sort of anything above about 170, it would just boil the brake, and that would be it. You'd be used, and at 300 miles an hour, forget it. So you had to use the parachute.
Yeah.
So the only way to deploy that was to really wrench back on all the thrust controls for the engine. So I was sort of learning about all this whilst I was up there. The next day was going to be the shoot. It's the first time I'd seen it. I was sitting in this jet car, eyeing it up and trying to figure out whether this was a good idea. But at that point, basically I got sent home. So I then, instead of coming here with Richard, I went to Dunsfold to go and shoot a Jag. I think it was a red Jag, I don't know which one it was, with Jeremy. And Richard came up. So I'd sort of passed on what I'd learnt in the brief time I spent sitting in a car that was turned off, and just tried to give as much useful information to the directing team as possible and to my boss.
And did you have a lot of concerns, or?
To be honest, yeah. Like, I found out in that short meeting that the same car, someone had died in it the year before, which doesn't give you an easy feeling. And so I was asking, well, why? What happened? What failed? So we were looking at, they thought that it was the rear strut that held up the rear right wheel. So I was grilling to understand, you know, how has that been addressed? They were showing me that. But, you know, didn't come here, you know, don't have a huge drag racing background. So I was like, okay. So all I could do was to say, minimise how many shots you do. And I insisted that the engineer who'd put it together did the first drive and lit the afterburners for the first time to try and prove, you know, if you were going to have a sleepless night, better knowing that you had prepped it for yourself at the very least before you handed it over. But yeah, it was a bit nerve-wracking because at that speed, you become an aerofoil. You know, there's so many mega forces affecting anything. So if there's any yaw in the car, especially in something like that's that long, it can have dramatic effects very, very quickly. So the bit that I'd lent on for Richard when he was doing his practice runs and building the speed up was to be very aggressive with knowing that the first sign of trouble to hit those thrust boosters to get them shut the engine off and deploy the parachute. First sign of trouble. Again, because if there's any yaw in the machine, it would deflate the parachute and you can't get the speed off.
Having chatted to him, he's super proud of himself that he looked at the telemetry afterwards and he did go to action that when it started to go wrong. He wasn't a complete passenger. He did think, oh crap, better stop this, but obviously by that point,
yeah,
too late.
You feel pretty rotten because, I mean, at the very least, I'd insisted that they were talking about him wearing his bike helmet, for instance. It was a complete joke. You know, your road bike helmet is quite heavy. It's not built out of specialist materials like carbon fibre, sorry, or Kevlar. Super light so that you reduce the amount of velocity in your head and it can protect you. So I had insisted that he had a Grand Prix level RI racing helmet and some decent overalls in case there was a fire. Which did help, but you can't help but feel bad not being here on the day. But I as an employee, I got sent in a different direction, handed over as much info as I could. Later, I learned a lot more about this place. Stuff that I wouldn't have been able to know without coming here firsthand to see it. Okay. And you can see it now, and you can see there's a camber in the road. Yeah. It's small.
It's sort of
but you can notice there's a curvature. So if you watch the footage, you can see that when Richard's driving it, he's actually having to put counter steer in to go straight. So that puts a load into the front right, and that's the tyre that exploded. And once that's gone, you're an aerofoil. You're not a car anymore. You're flying basically because the front's come off the ground, and he was passenger.
Well, thankfully, he survived that.
He made it because he's who he is, and you know, he's a tough character. I'm just very glad he pulled through, and he's good. You want to protect the old geezer.
Well, yeah, in terms of like iconic, well, it seems weird to call it iconic, but in terms of massive Top Gear moments from the 2000s, we kind of can't miss it out considering we were driving past. But I don't know, there is something a bit odd about standing here on this airfield right
Honestly,
now.
I don't like it.
About it.
I just think of this as a bad memory.
Okay, we've got a big day tomorrow.
Yep.
So York is just that way. Let's go chill out.
All right, that's cool.
Keys. A slight change of attire today. Gone are the Powerpuff Girls, and in is Jaguar F1. Love this jacket. I think it's vintage 2002.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking me halfway up the country in your little boy's toy, but I thought it was time to pick my own.
Oh yes, I like it. I like it a lot.
Now this is what you call a road trip cruiser.
I like your style, Ben. A worthy adversary to the Aston. I'll keep my Aston though, thank you. V12 over, I'm guessing W12 in that thing?
600 horsepower to your maybe 450 if you were hopeful.
I do think next time we should try for a Carrera GT and SLR, but I'll take this as a duo for now. What will be making these two cars look so cool on the road is the crew van in front of us. We always have a Transit MSRT and there's a very nice camera hanging off the back of it. And what's really cool is that the sponsor of today's video, Press On, has protected our van using their DIY PPF kit.
Press On Automotive's kits are self-installation, meaning that you can PPF your own car at home. In your PPF kit, you'll get an application kit free too, which comes with PPF tack and slip, spray bottles, a squeegee, microfiber towels and a clay bar. Everything you need to PPF your vehicle in your spare time. And check this out, Press On Automotive has just launched an exclusive everyday kit for only £99. This is perfect for getting started with PPF at home, including film for your wing mirrors, door sills and rear bumper, along with heaps of videos to show you how to apply it all. It'll protect your car from any nasty grazes or stone chips thanks to the top quality of the film, keeping the paint job spotless. We love our Crew Transit and it's helped film almost all of your favourite DRIVETRIBE videos, so it's great to know that it's protected for many more shoots to come.
So, if you plan on maybe recreating this road trip or going hundreds of miles somewhere else, make sure to check out Press On Automotive. We'll put the link to them in the description below. Get your car protected. Ben, to continue our Top Gear reminiscing, can I run you over what happened in Top Gear Series 11?
Absolutely, but you don't need to run me over.
The Zonda F and the Bugatti Veyron around the track. What were those two cars genuinely like around the track? Because they're not exactly, lightweight GT3 cars. Did they actually handle around there?
First Veyron that we had round, they are heavy and it's all-wheel drive with massive tyres, so it mostly understeered. So you had pretty powerful braking, but it was a very heavy car. So really the whole lap was about trying to look after the front, get its nose in. The Zonda is a different beast, and that one, it had, it was more balanced. But the car was very much, it's built like a reefer boat. So you've got quite very, very stiff steering wheel. I know it sounds ridiculous, but trying to manhandle it, when the tail was going, you'd be quite careful not to chop your fingers off with the steering wheel. And the back end, because it felt like quite a short wheelbase car. Once the weight got moving, it was very busy looking after the tail, but a lot of fun. And the sound on the Zonda was amazing. So it was obviously a better handling car, rear wheel drive, lots of power.
I'd say in the Aston, you can feel it's an early 2000s car. Does that Bentley feel like an 04? Do you feel like you're back in 2004?
I kind of do. Although back in 2004, I spent nearly all of my time in an Audi A3. So similar bloodline, obviously part of the VAG group. Didn't spend much time in a Bentley Continental. But this design is pretty timeless. There's a modern version of this car, but they don't look vastly different to this, do they?
Do you know what? I see that car you're driving as almost like a 70% Veyron. Would you say that's fair?
Similar thing. They're built to gobble up distance, aren't they? And the thing with this is it's way more practical, but it has got a presence. It just feels, I don't know, it's quite a throne to be in, and it's comfortable, relaxing, dollops of power when you want it.
I do wish I had your knobs in my car. They are quite nice.
There's enough of a knob in your car. Well, you're well sorted on that front, Mike.
Open goal. Open goal. Shrek was big,
Yep.
but not as big as Harry Potter. And that there's Alnwick Castle, where they filmed some of The Philosopher's Stone.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
What, is that why you're wearing that jumper?
It is why I'm wearing this jumper. I always thought, like cool, but like also like maybe a bit of a mean side as well. I would be a Slytherin.
I don't think you would make the cut to be a Slytherin.
Why not? Don't offend me.
Personally, I think that's probably where I'd have been put. You got to be slightly nasty. There's an intelligence level there. You got to meet that, and slightly cool. I think they're quite cool people.
Again, tick tick.
No, I think you'd fall foul of that. I definitely think you're actually wearing the right T-shirt, because I think you'd be a Hufflepuffer. They look like the less sporty ones. Is that a matching hat you got? I saw a woolly hat as well.
The thing is, I knew you would be a Slytherin also. So here you go. Get that bad boy
Thanks.
on.
No, that's great.
Get on.
Take that off.
No, get it on.
Take that off.
I know you like your hair.
This is mine.
You obviously done it this morning. Get that. Oh yes. Look at that.
It is cool. And you watched this when you were a kid, didn't you?
Oh
This
God.
is the thing.
Harry Potter.
Read the books.
I guess you were a bit older, so I guess Harry Potter, was it just like this kids thing? For me, it was like literally all encompassing.
Everyone on the tube was reading the books. It was
Right.
quite
Yeah.
a thing, and they were really cool. They were well written.
In the 2000s, there was 3 big book into film series. There was Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Twilight. Now, Big decision here, 50-50.
Yeah.
Team Jacob,
I'm sorry?
Team Edward.
I
Don't get this wrong. Everyone's watching.
have
The
no idea
cameramen
what
will
you're
know
talking
that means.
about.
You don't know
Is this...
Edward Cullen, vampire versus werewolf.
I never got into that weird kinky stuff.
You've never
No.
seen Twilight?
No.
See, this was before vampires and werewolves got too kinky. It was just like, oh, falling in love. Nowadays, it's just like railed constantly.
Honestly, having learned a bit about the sort of cartoons and stuff you grew up watching, I think...
Again, don't offend me.
No, I'm just... it's a lot, I think it explains a lot about your generation and some of the problems you guys have. Obsessions with vampires.
If we want to get by fairies, we'll get by fairies.
Look.
You know what I mean? Or you want to the fairies
just,
most of the time.
Just go walk in the woods and get it over with. I have no idea what you're talking about. I never watched any of this vampire stuff.
Anyway, lovely castle.
Nice castle. No vampires.
I'll give it to Ben. That Bentley is cool. It looks suave as hell. But which one would you take? Tell us in the comments below. Aston Vanquish, Continental GT, 6-litre V12, 6-litre W12. It's tough. It's tough. If I think of stuff that's better in my car than yours, I'm pretty sure my paddles are nicer. If I remember, the Bentley paddle shifts are a bit kind of weird, like long horizontal things.
It has no paddle shift, but you've got the sequential option, which I think is very sophisticated.
You do have paddle shift, you maybe just don't recognise them as paddles, that's why they're so weird.
Whatever those, I don't touch those little things there, no.
Told you, they're weird.
What's he on about? No, there's no paddles here. What's he talking about? Oh, there they are. Oh, there are paddles. Okay. Oh, right, look at that. They're quite serious. All right. Okay, I found the paddles. It does have paddles. They're okay, actually. They work quite well. And actually, there's less delay than in the Aston.
The tamed racing driver got there in the end. Looking back on when we first met, I cannot escape and I cannot forget.
Baby, you're the one. You still turn me on.
Ben can make me whole again.
And that is why he's driving alone. That's also because he has no working stereo in his car, whereas the Bentley, everything works still on this car. It's aged well, like a fine wine. No.
Crossing the border into Scotland, we arrived in Edinburgh, the city where I grew up in the 2000s, and headed straight to where I inevitably spent most of my time as a kid.
Ben, welcome to Stuart's Melville College in Edinburgh. StuMel, this was my school.
Love it, your school. So how long were you institutionalised here?
So I was here literally from the get-go, so nursery all the way upwards. But I guess in the 2000s, yeah, I was here from the age of 6 until 15 in 2009, I guess. So yeah, this is literally where I kind of grew up. My mum worked here, and it was an amazing school. I absolutely loved it. Big on rugby, and I've actually got some artifacts. These mean quite a lot to me, these. So this one here, which one's this? Okay, so 2009.
Right.
Senior piping.
Piping. Oh yeah.
So I won the piping championship here.
I'm not surprised. You're the
Michael Fowler.
loudest, were you?
Yeah, well, obviously, a Scottish school,
Yeah.
massive into pipe band.
Fantastic.
Everyone's got pipe band. So I used to march that playground down there. Used to march up and down every single Friday and Wednesday after school.
That's really cool.
And then this one here. So as well as piping, I was into athletics. So this was, again, 2009. It was a good year.
Yeah.
I came third in the athletics championship.
2009.
So that was the year I started to take it quite seriously, and I thought, right, I've come third.
Yeah.
Let's take it up a notch. So although it's not in the 2000s,
Yep.
this was my big year.
The gold coin.
2010 S4 champion. That was huge. There was a trophy that went with that.
What is
honestly,
S4?
S4, so that's the equivalent of year 10,
Oh, all right.
I
Okay.
think. So like third last year of senior school.
In athletics?
In athletics.
And what was your chosen
I was
field
a
of
sprinter.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1, 2, 4. 4 being my best. I was quite good endurance, but also
Really?
a bit of speed.
So you've got some pace
Yeah.
and some rugby.
But I love this school. Over there, that top right corner was history.
Yeah.
That was my favourite subject. I bet that was your favourite subject as
Yeah,
well.
I did. Loved history. But you were the mechanical engineering guy, so you must have been big physics, maths.
So physics is that building back there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was okay at it, and there seemed to be more of a job in that, hence why I went down the engineering route. But really, in my heart was Mr. Longmuir. I wonder if he's still here. My favourite history
Of course,
teacher.
that would be his name. We had a guy who did the uniform called Longbottom.
Yes,
It's funny
we
how
had a
these
long
names
bottom as well.
Really?
Yes.
They get around.
Yes.
Okay, what a place. How'd they control you? Right in the heart of Edinburgh.
I know,
Like
I know.
party time. We'd go
Yeah,
out.
after school, again, so up the top of the 2000s, when I was like 14, 15, used to head straight into town afterwards, get some sweeties, walk about Princess Street, look
Love
at the
that.
castle. First year of senior school, we had lockers in that building there, that's the Lamwich block.
Yeah.
And all down the inside of my locker, I printed off pictures of my favourite cars and blue tacked them on. And I used to get slagged off by my mates because I'd open my locker and it just used to be Jag XK, SLR, Carrera GT, Enzo, all the stuff we've been talking about.
What's the cost of a pint in Edinburgh these days?
I don't know, I'm not much of a drinker.
About £3.50. So thanks for these, and
Don't you dare.
take those
That's one of my prized
straight to the bar.
possessions, Ben. Ben, not the medals.
With the noughties nostalgia flowing from every sinew on Mike's jacket, he bravely took me to the final stop on the trip, his childhood home from whence he was hatched.
Ben, act normal.
Jag heaven.
Hey, Mum.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, nice to see you.
This is Ben.
Hello.
Hi,
Nice to
Ben.
meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Another Jag, Ben.
Yeah. The Jaguar Rover obsession all makes sense to me now.
Absolutely.
It's all here, isn't it, in the childhood?
Just to add to it, MGC. So this was the family classic. It was my mum and dad's wedding car,
No way.
but it's still in the family.
So cool.
So when it was kicking off in here and I was trying to help my dad restore this, we had the boombox going.
Yeah.
And I think this explains my music taste. So
You've got decent taste.
Eminem, Creed,
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring soundtrack,
Weird.
Linkin Park, Green Day, Moby, Slipknot.
Yeah.
Gets quite heavy. But that used to absolutely pump in here. Going at the MG, absolutely going for it.
Yeah.
Bedroom, I have just bought a house, so
Yeah.
it's a bit barren now because I've evacuated it, but this was me growing up.
Yeah. Cool.
Veyron, Hurricane, boats.
Did you draw that?
I didn't.
Okay. Now, there's a XJ220 over here.
There is,
It's
yes.
the wrong colour.
Well, you say that.
I'm saying that.
This was a COVID project. The prototype XJ220 was red with gold wheels. So I stripped that back and I repainted it in that spec.
Okay.
This is where my dartboard was.
Yeah.
So you can see the remnants of that.
There's a dead insect here. Should I just pick that up?
So I killed that fly, honestly, I think 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Was
And
it a friend
has
and you
sat
keeping
there
it?
ever since. That's fossilised by now.
You don't, and you want to keep it up?
No, I've never given him a name, but you know that is.
Just rub it off.
Don't. That's a piece of history there.
Yeah. Very Spartan, Mike.
Yeah, but lots of room. Like
Yeah. This is curious. What is this one?
that's Beddy by Bobo's. You know, good night.
Okay. But you slept with that on your head. So, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to try it?
Hey. Whoa. Creepy. Okay.
No, Ben. Ben, stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Ha, ha.
Stop.
Ha ha.
Ben, would you say that the 2000s was your best decade?
I think so. I think everything happened in that time. I was racing at the top level for me. Le Mans, ASCAR Championship, won that. Le Mans Series. I should have started this by saying I got married and I had my 3 children, actually. I got slightly the wrong order. And Top Gear. So I got to, so car-wise, filled my boots.
You were saying to me earlier today that you reckon time speeds up
Yeah.
as you get older.
I think so. You log a lot of experiences, and then when things come around again, I think your brain just doesn't take as long to process them.
So would you say that's better or worse?
I mean, life is great. Every day is a gift. What do? Keep learning. Every day is a school day.
Well, thanks for coming on this road trip, by the way. It's been good.
I've loved it. It's been great. We've had some good chats. I think, and I've loved seeing your origin story. Your passion for cars is obviously grounded in the heartland, and from your family upbringing, it's just great. So it's been a pleasure. It's been really cool.
Cool. Can I drive the Bentley back by any chance?
I knew you were going to ask that. I guess that's only fair.